Okay, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Razia Farmani. I'm a professor of water engineering from Center for Water Systems, University of Exeter, UK. I'm the chair of IWS Intermittent Water Supply Specialist Group, and I'm hosting today's webinar. It's my great pleasure to welcome our speaker today, Dr. Hassan Aboelnga. He is a researcher at Cologne University of Applied Sciences, and he is also a member of IWS Intermittent Water Supply Specialist Group. He's specialized in urban water securities, and he's going to talk today about intermittent water supply and water security in cities. Before I hand over to Hassan, I just wanted to mention that the webinar is being recorded. It will be available from our YouTube channel. And also at the end, we are going to have the opportunity for Q&A. So if you have got any questions, please feel free to type those in the chat, or alternatively, we are going to turn the microphones on and you can ask your question just by raising your hand and putting your questions to Hassan. Thank you very much. Over to you, Hassan.
Thanks so much, Razia, for this introduction, and thanks also for IWA specialist groups to make such video webinars to enlighten the audience or the community about the importance of addressing intermittent water supply. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, wherever you are. I'm Dr. Hassan Aboelnga. I'm talking today from Cairo. Happy to also to join you today to talk about one of the important topics that really relates to water security in the relation between intermittent water.
Sorry, Hassan, it seems the sound, our participants can't hear you. Could you please check, you have unmuted,
hello,
turned off that option? Okay. Oh, some,
can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. So please, our participants, if you can hear Hassan, please indicate in the, okay, they have some. So it might be your own speaker. Those who can't hear, please check your speakers. Sorry, please continue. Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much. So, and today I will talk about the interrelation between intermittent water supply and water security, especially in cities, talking about the challenges of intermittent water supply, causes of intermittent water supply, how we can really shift from intermittent water supply to continuous water supply to ensure water security in cities. So I will talk about, this is the agenda of our webinar today. And in the couple of minutes, I will talk about IWS and also the challenges in cities in terms of water and sanitation, water security concept, how we can really assess water security in order to really highlight all the challenges in cities. Measuring also urban water security in two cases, in Maraba in Jordan and in Beirut in Lebanon. And we will also see other examples from Asia in Bangkok and India, in Pakistan. Some examples that we can see from also intermittent water supply. Then we will talk about how we can really shift from intermittent water supply to 24/7 water supply with this transformation framework. Then I will give you also some insights on how we can really achieve the Sustainable Development Goal, the SDG 6, on safely managed water, and for sure intermittent water supply is a great part of it. When it comes to one of the most important demographic trends that we have seen today is mainly urbanization. That cities now are growing, and I think now over the times, 2/3 of the world's population will be projected in urban areas. This also making a really a great increasing demand to water, coupled with this climate extremes such as flood and droughts, with the urbanization, all of this put a great pressure on our socio-economic development, vulnerability of our water resources, and what we reach today to that many cities today have intermittent water supply. That means that receive water only once or twice or a couple of hours per day. And this is for sure not the normal water supply. And for sure, this has major implications on water security. When we see the intermittent water supply in the global agendas of the MDGs before 2015, and also for the SDGs to be achieved by 2030, we will see here really a major differences between these two agendas. Intermittent water supply is placed when it comes to access to basic water access in the MDGs. This means that if you have really access to the networks, this means that we achieved the target or the indicators for water. While in the SDGs, we look for universal coverage, which mainly we're going from really access to basic water, basic access to water to safely managed water. This is very important because many countries or many cities, many people would have access to the water network, but don't have water all the time in what is called intermittent water supply. In terms also of comprehensive coverage, this is also focused not only on water or the access, but also considering the whole water cycle and the integrated approach. In terms also of sustainable coverage, as I said, this is also reflected in to have safely managed access to water, which is completely different from basic access to water network. This is already reflected in the finance. If I talk about the difference between access to basic water services and access to safely managed water. As you can see here in the drinking water, it means that we need 4 to 6 times of the capital investment of today in order to achieve the SDG 6 by 2030. This means that we need really a huge investment in the water cycle or in the water sector. From that, you would find also the implications of intermittent water supply is also high, because if we raise the bar that we shift in the MDGs from access to basics, access to water services to access to safely managed water, which is really needed to ensure water security in cities. When it comes to the challenges, as you can see, major challenges in many parts of the world, including increasing water demand, which leads to also that many people also don't have water all the time, and this increasing demand is reflected also in the socioeconomics and also the national security of the country. Many challenges related to water quality, wastewater also discharge also to the environment. 80% of our wastewater is being discharged to the environment. High leakage also, or high levels of non-revenue water, coupled with climate extremes such as floods and droughts. All of these examples, you would see it, in many countries with different also degrees of severity. But when it comes to the challenges, you would find challenges at different levels. At the first level, when it comes to the utility level, where they are managing the water and sanitation services, the challenges related to level 2, which is related to cities and also the relation with urban design. The third level is mainly cities connected to basins. And all of this is really interconnected. When you see intermittent water supply at the first level, when people receive water, it has implications from all the 3 levels. So if you have a limited water supply or water scarcity issues and shortage that really limiting you to use water, many countries shifting their water supply from continuous to intermittent supply, which has also negative consequences also on the management and the operation of water. you would see how we really reach to this intermittent water supply, which is refers to the piped water supply services that is available to the consumers less than 24 hours. Many examples that you see, like in my region, in the Arab region, you would find like in Jordan, people receiving water only once or twice per week. In many examples also in Asia, you would find that this is also very common practice, and you would find 1.2 billion people do really have access to the water network but don't receive water all the time. How this started is started by we having increasing water demand that comes also from increasing also population growth or really economic growth. And then you need also to expand the network beyond the capacity, which lead to inadequate water supply, and which leads also to poor services for most of the people, and you find corruption and conflict and inequality of the water supply, and less people also, less willingness also for people to pay for the water services because the coping cost for intermittent water supply is very high, and this leads as well to high levels of non-revenue water, which means the water losses and the leakage in the network, and you need more staff in order to cope with these challenges, and at the end you have a system that doesn't provide really a safe and sustainable services. This is for sure coming with different causes for this, starting from population and economic growth, that you would find really a big gap between supply and demand. This imbalance also leads some utilities or some cities to shift from continuous to intermittent supply, or to operate directly their system with intermittent supply. Another factor is also that comes from socioeconomic, that you have also low affordability of water services and the high coping cost. So imagine you have the water network, you have the access, and but when you open the tap, you don't find water. So it means that you need to invest in roof tanks or in reservoirs in order to store water. And sometimes also you will find also a market or a black market in order you need to buy water from vendors. It comes also from institutional also causes, that there is a fragmented also institutions with poor also information and the management and the governance for water, and the limited also capacities for utilities or for the staff in order to really operate the system in a sustainable way. Another also causes for the operation when you have high levels of non-revenue water, so you have huge leakage in the network. Imagine in many cities, most of water or half of the water which is really treated and produced and distributed is being lost. And this is very common in most of cities that have intermittent water supply. Some also causes that comes also from energy scarcity or energy problems, that we know that we need also energy in order to drive water, in order to also transfer water to or move water to distribute it to the network. Also, one of the major issues about the poor governance, and we see today that the world is off track in order to achieve the sustainable development goal on water, on safely managed water, and this is mainly majorly also from poor water governance. As I said, with this non-revenue water, this has really a big implications. The global estimate that we have 126 billion cubic meter is being lost every year. When it comes to intermittent water supply, when you have the system with continuous water supply, if you have a leakage in the network, intermittent water supply exacerbates the problem of water losses or the leakage in the network. Why is this? Because you limit the supply time to a specific time, which means that you operate the system in really in turbulent way when you have really high pressure in the network, and this high pressure in the network leads to high leakage. So it means that with this high pressure, it means that you deteriorate also the system, or the water network, because it really, the work is under really severe conditions, and at the end you'll find really a major problems when it comes to the losses or the physical losses. So it means that the people at the end of the network, they don't have water because the water hasn't reached to them because of the losses that has been in the system. And there are major causes for this, not only the leakage, which is mainly the physical losses, but also the commercial losses, which really comes from illegal uses or water theft, or water also lack of metering and the problems when it comes to the billing. And when it comes to water security, if we ask, you would find many definitions for water security, and it's really important for us to define what does water security means. So United Nations has provided really a comprehensive definition for this, which means that refers to the capacity of population to safeguard sustainable access to adequate quantities of acceptable quality water for sustaining livelihood, human well-being, socioeconomic, and also for ensuring protection against waterborne diseases, and also preserving the ecosystem. So you see here 4 main pillars to ensure water security: drinking water, ecosystem, water and related hazards, and socioeconomic development. But from the definition, you wouldn't find really a big gap when it comes to having the challenges in cities, especially intermittent water supply, and how intermittent water supply really plays a great role in the definition or in really the management of water and urban water, specifically in these cities. How we can really assess we can assess water security. You have different also trends and the pressures, and all of this put a great putting us on different dimensions, as we see this 4 main dimensions of water security. And for sure, we define what are the causes and what are impacts on these 4 dimensions, and we define from these dimensions indicators that relates to water security, and we will see in the next slides how really we can assess water security in this holistic way. What are benefits of using this? It provides you with really an overview of the water security in the city, not only from the water availability perspective, but having a holistic perspective on really water security, covering these 4 main pillars of drinking water and human well-being, ecosystem, climate change, and socioeconomic. So you don't look only on the dimension or then the pillar of drinking water and human well-being on the availability of the services, but also looking at also the access to safely managed water, and also the time also of the supply, which really has implications on intermittent water supply and the water quality as well, and how this also plays a great role in the trade-offs with other pillars. This also framework, it provides you also with a tool to understand also what could be the strategic decisions that you could take in the city in order to achieve water security. And for sure, you would find also a trade-offs with that. If I would say that I would increase or shift from intermittent water supply to continuous supply, but you already have also high leakage in the network, so would it help you to when you are shifting? If you have socio-economic also aspects, that means that also the budget directed to the sectors is not enough in order to do the shift. This means that you also have many trade-offs in the indicators that we will see in the next slides. This also, if we have an index for water security in cities, it also provides also cities also to learn from, an opportunity to learn from each other, exchange also best practices. Many cities also have turned from intermittent water supply to continuous water supply. Many cities also have different degrees also of severity of the challenges in each case. And this is very important for to see the full perspective, because you could find a city really with having a high water availability, but is still working with intermittent water supply. And this is for sure, but you would see also the major cities that they have really intermittent water supply. They have challenges with water scarcity, which means that they have really shortage in water supply. In terms of the methodology on how we can really assess urban water security, this means firstly to understand the urban water system in terms of stakeholders, existing infrastructures, and water balance. Why is this is really important when considering the assessment of water security? Because the operations and the management of intermittent water supply is completely different of continuous water supply. We all learn in schools the continuous water supply and the hydraulics related to it. But when it comes also to implementations and also the programs that we see in many countries, also major mistakes that you would find it that they don't differentiate between intermittent systems with intermittent system with continuous water supply. That means that they are providing solutions for continuous supply while the system is operating in different way. The second stage is mainly understanding what does really urban water security mean. And for sure, there are common global working definitions, but in the next slide, I will provide really a definition that really reflects the challenges in urban water. And for sure, with this working definition, it would guide us on how we can really assess water security. And the assessment should be also based on solid framework, such as the Sustainable Development Goal number 6 on water, and also the human rights to water and sanitation, because there are many implications on of intermittent water supply on the human rights in terms of inequality, gender issues, and all the challenges related to water security. In terms of setting the boundaries and quantifying it, we need really to cover these four main pillars of water security to provide this holistic solutions. And with this indicator, you will find also indicators with different units and dimensions and the measurements. So you need to normalize these results. And this shows you have a scale from 1 to 5. 1, it means that poor water security, and 5, high water security. Calculations of this integrated urban water security index that have this indicator to provide you at the end with one number to measure water security. For sure, it's important when you have this index, it should be credible. That means how to have really trusted indicators to decision makers. The silence of it, how this is relevant to the decision maker, is really important to see or to really measure the security in the city when it comes to urban water or water in general, legitimacy of it, how this information is really produced, and also if there is also legal considerations for that, and reflecting also the different actors on water, especially as a government role on that. When it comes to the definition of urban water security to reflect these challenges, as we said that the UN water security definition, which is really broader in the context, if we provide really specific terminologies and specific components to it in order to reflect the challenges, it would be reflected as the dynamic capacities. Dynamic because, you know, there is major challenges when it comes to increasing water demand from population growth or influx of displaced people to different cities or the different places, coupled also with climate change, which having really a dynamics on dealing with water system. And this is the capacity of water systems, not only the stakeholders, as we saw in the UN definition, but also the water system. Because if the system itself is intermittent water supply with aging infrastructure, with high leakage in the network, and the network is really deteriorated, This means that you cannot, the network itself cannot help you to achieve even if you have the capacity to do this, to do measurements to ensure water security. And it's important for that to ensure equitable access, because one of the major challenges is that you find in intermittent water supply that the people near to the reservoir, they receive most of the water, and the people at the end of the network, they don't receive water, and that's why you see many water trucks in such cities that they operating under intermittent supply, which for sure having major implications on the socioeconomic part, or also customer satisfaction. And for sure, when we have this access, it should be continuous. It should be physically and legally available at also an affordable cost. And this is very important when we ensure water security, and for sure to ensure these four main dimensions of water security. In order to measure this, we need an index. As I said, it's called the Integrated Urban Water Security Index. So we will measure water security in cities with this index with different dimensions and many indicators in order to reflect that, from water quantity in terms of availability, diversity of consumption, the reliability of the system, but also water quality and the access and dependency ratio of water in this city, if the water comes from other places or from far place, in terms of adequacy and equity, socioeconomic perspectives like in terms of cost recovery and the tariffs, and also the illegal uses in the network or the system, ecosystem, from also the state of pollution, and also the green areas, and also the effectiveness of the network or the storm network. When it comes to climate change and water-related hazards, in terms of the greenhouse gas emission and its role also to in water security, in terms of public health as well, in terms of floods or extremes such as floods and droughts. Interpretation at the end, when you have an index from 1 to 5, it means that 1 is really poor water security and the 5 is high water security, and you see here the grading of urban water security when we have the results for each indicators, or even for the overall index that we have at the end, in order to see if this really in this city a good water security or poor water security or really excellent water security from this all four main dimensions. If you see here with drinking water and human well-being, this is an example. You see here indicators of that we identified in terms of water security indicators, and you would find here variables. One of the major issues about also the reliability of the system in terms of non-review water, in terms of infrastructure leakage index and the losses in the network. But also one of the major issue when it comes to intermittent supply is about the average supply time of the compliance also with minimum service standards. For sure, I will not go through all of this. I will also leave, we are recording the webinar and I will also share the presentation with you. So you could look at in details on these indicators and also the thresholds for it. If we go to the example of Maraba and Jordan, this is a clear example that we see. When you say here with water availability, it means that it's 165, so it means that less than 500 cubic meter per capita per year. That means it's according to the UN, it's located in the under severe water scarcity, which is absolute water scarcity, which is less than 500 cubic meter per capita per year. And in terms of adequacy, you would find here they receive only 7 hours by day, but they receive water only once or twice per week. Or in terms of Maraba, they receive water only twice. And this for sure is depending on each places or each places in Maraba itself, because Maraba is really a governorate, so it's a major city, and it depends all the areas that's really covering in terms of district meter areas or DMAs as we call it. And if you see here from the drinking water and human well-being perspective, you would find here, if you see here one And two, it means that there is poor water security in terms of that. So in terms of fresh water availability, because it's really having really difficulties on securing water for people and really a high water scarcity. That means that scoring was one. In terms of non-revenue water, you see that 40% of the water is being lost. That means also huge losses in the network. And for sure, this is reflected also when it comes to intermittent supply with the average number of supply. In terms of ecosystem, one of the major issues about the state of pollution and the percentage also of treated wastewater flows. And this is the thresholds in order to define for it, just to give you an indication where are the city in terms of water security. For sure, this threshold that we see 1 to 3 is really can be also like it changed when it comes to the conditions of cities, because cities having different degrees of its challenges, and also there is no one size also fits all water challenges in cities, and this is very important to consider also the localization of challenges and solutions in different cities. For sure, this is reflected also in the ecosystem when it comes to also Madaba. In terms of climate change and water-related hazards, public health is one of the major issues in the intermittent water supply. When you see also many people also have really difficulties when it comes to the incidence of contamination. A big example that we see today, like in my region, in the Arab region in Yemen, when you have really the implications of public health and the water-related hazards and also risks that comes from water, because in Yemen also they have intermittent water supply, and there are also different challenges as we have seen in the causes of intermittent water supply with really huge implications on water security. For sure, also floods and droughts also plays a great role on the indicators for water security. We see also here also public health also is a major challenges when you see this also indicators a number of also potable water contamination or incidents that come from diarrhea according also to the WHO. You would find also many assessment for water security, taking only this example, but it doesn't provide all all the big pictures of really water security in terms of public health, because it could be also another causes for public health, not only water contamination, but also maybe other challenges like it comes from high floods that we see also in many places, and this really had implications, or even ingress of contaminant in the network with different also reasons. When it comes to socioeconomics, that reflected also an intermittent water supply and water security, the affordability of the service. Because with water tariff, if you come to communities with really having intermittent water supply and ask them to increase the water tariff, this means also for them a huge implications on the cost and the affordability of the service, because they receive water only once or twice, but also they have also high coping costs. They invest in roof tanks. They also buy water from vendors. They also have difficulties also to get water, especially also for women and communities also that need to really to travel to far places in order to get water. And all this has really a huge implications on the social and also the social compact between water and the institutions. In meaning that we need, when we are working on the financing or really doing any measurements or any solutions in cities under intermittent water supply, to consider these conditions, that there is high coping cost and there is also low affordability of the water services, and this is for sure would be having a big also implications when we define what could be the solutions that could be provided to these cities. We can see here also one of the major issues about the operation and the maintenance cost, and also the recovery, the cost recovery. You would see also in most of cities or utilities are operating with intermittent water supply. You would find also low cost recovery. This comes also from also the high leakage in the network, and also the challenges when it comes to having really well managed water tariff that could really reflect the cost of operation and the maintenance of water. You would find this what does it mean in terms of institutions, that the institution or the water utilities cannot cover the operation and the maintenance costs. If you look at this spider diagram with this, you would find really this circles, which is really this grades of water security from 1 to 5. So it means that if you are near to the center, that means that you have poor water security, and you have all these indicators or 4 main dimensions: drinking water and human well-being, ecosystem, socioeconomic, and also climate change. In order to provide you with really a clear picture of this, so all points that you see, or red points that you see in near to the circuit, means that they have both poor water security, like here in terms of the state of pollution, in terms of the reliability of the system, in terms of availability of water supply, in terms of public health, in terms also of water tariffs. This implications gives you an opportunity also to measure water security with this 4 main dimensions. So you see in drinking water, you have 2, ecosystem 2.5, climate and water-related hazards is 1.6, socioeconomic 2.2, and at the end you have an average of 2.5, which means a reasonable urban water security. That means that the utility or this city can provide water, but having a major challenges when it comes to ecosystem, dealing also with climate change, and also with socioeconomic aspects. Because also one of the major issues in the socioeconomic is mainly the budget directed to the sector. The budget directed to the sector is very low, and for sure this has a great implications in terms of providing solutions or even dealing with intermittent water supply. Another example is that we see also here in Beirut in Lebanon, they have also intermittent water supply. They have also major implications and major challenges. So you see also all these big pictures, and then also you can define also the trade-off. This means that if I would say I would really shifting from intermittent water supply, like from 7 hours to 24/7 hours, we need in this dimension to ensure that there is low leakage in the network, and you manage really the high levels of non-revenue water. You need to ensure also the affordability of the services. You need to ensure also that the budget directed to the sector or to the water is really sufficient in order to do the shift. Another implications also the negative implications that you would say that I will diversify the water resources, or using for instance wastewater reuse to increase the water supply, but it could have implications on this on the quality of water, on groundwater, or in the ecosystem. So it's really important when we define any solutions on each indicator, on it to improve each indicator, to look at the 4 pictures of water security indicators, and also the trade-offs that come from that. Another example that we could see also, we see Madaba, but we have also examples and the comparative assessment that we did also in Asia, in Islamabad and Hanoi, in Jaipur and Bangkok. And these countries also have also different challenges and the common challenges that we could see in terms of, for sure, of population, and also in terms of also economic aspects. They have different challenges, but as I said, also common challenges that we would see in terms of also water supply challenges and ensuring also the urban water security in the cities. If you look at this indicators, you would find you could have like in some cities that you have really a high water quality or water availability, which could be ensured, but at the same time, the reliability of the supply is very low. That means also you have high leakage in the network. And for sure, this is also reflected on cities like here in Bangkok, which has really continuous water supply. But when it comes to the adequacy and equity, they can ensure that because they have really the water availability. But when you see the other cities in Johor, in Hanoi, in Islamabad, and in Maraba, you see the implications of intermittent water supply on the adequacy and the equity of water supply. And this has also reflected, you could see also on the reliability of the system that comes also from the water losses, or really ensuring that the system is reliable enough to provide safe access to safe access of water to the customers or to the people. And for sure, this also has implications for as well on water quality, because intermittent water supply has also consequences on water quality. This cities also, if we see the or to measure the integrated urban water security index, it provides you also with a good pictures on how really we can see the city, and you can also compare the cities between each other. So you see here that Hanoi is really having a good water security, better than the other cities. But for sure, they have also difficulties when it comes to ensuring the water security from the ecosystem perspective. Some countries also having really a good or really in reasonable degree on water supply and human well-being, but having really a major difficulties when it comes to socioeconomic and ecosystems such as Islamabad and also Maraba in Jordan. If we put all these indicators and put all these cities are also in this spider diagram, if you follow this, all indicators that really is near to the center, it means that they having also challenges and they having weakness when it comes to these indicators. And for sure, if you wanted to ensure water security, you need to really improve all these indicators and improve all these dimensions, and considering for sure all these aspects together, from socioeconomic to operation and to also all four main indicators and main pillars of water security. These implications of intermittent water supply and water security, I highlight only this major 4 points. The first is mainly that the service cost for the under intermittent water supply is more than continuous services, because you have high coping cost and you need also more people to work on the system, and also have implications also on the social contract between the governments and its communities. And we see also that in many places or many examples that we see also riots and also demonstrations against governments because they didn't provide water for people, or safe or continuous water for people. In terms also in intermittent hours also force people also to rely sometimes on black markets or informal vendors that may often serving also higher income citizens or rich people, and this exacerbate inequalities among also communities, with impacts for sure on adding as a risk multiplier to the challenges that we see in many cities. In terms of water quality problems also, due to also the potential suctions of non-potable water by negative pressure, or biofilm detachment, or the microbiological also growth in the network when the network also is empty. This also has a major implications. IWS also holds also back gender equity, because you see also many women are really the responsible in order to get water for their daily life, and for sure this also prevents many women and girls and children also to go to schools, and also looks also people in these communities in a cycle of poverty, and you can imagine the implications of that on socioeconomic and dealing also with intermittent water supply in such a case. For that, we need transformation. And this transformation, that means we need really to shift from intermittent water supply into continuous water supply. And in that, you would find two schools. One school that says we improve the intermittent water supply, the system, the systems that we have in order to really provide the customers with water. But there is other school where we are belonging that we need really to shift from intermittent supply to continuous water supply with the same water quantity. But for that, you need also to ensure the reliability of system, and you need to reduce the leakage, because it's really when you take the decision to shift from continuous water supply to intermittent, you can take it, in a minute or in a day. But in order to shift from really intermittent to continuous supply, or to get your system back, it may take years, and there are many examples for that. You would see it could reach even to more than 5 years or 10 years in order to get your network back from intermittent to continuous water supply. How we could do this shift? I define here a framework which we call transformation. With this acronym, you would find the solutions on it. It means from T, we have the technical assessment. That is really important to do technical assessment for the existing water supply. Measure also the non-revenue water, identify the challenges, identify also the causes that we identified also for intermittent water supply. You need also resource allocations, so you need to also to allocate also budget and the human resources to address the challenges identified in this technical assessment. You need networking and collaborations also between different water stakeholders in order to ensure that all water stakeholders, including also the governance and also parliaments and all people, also are considering the importance of addressing intermittent water supply and shifting the systems, because it would take really a huge effort from one stakeholder in order to shift the intermittent to continuous water supply. That is for sure. It needs a network and a collaboration between all water stakeholders. S, in terms of survey and the data collections, in terms of also data on water demand patterns and also population growth and consumption trends, because the patterns that you see in continuous water supply will be completely different from intermittent supply, in which people only knows in terms of specific days or specific times that they receive water, and they need to open their water tap, or they need to store water in their roof tanks or in their reservoirs. And it means that you need also to understand how you could also shift the demand, which is really has been happening for many years, in order to provide continuous supply. Analysis also and the planning for this in terms of and after you correct this, collect all this data and provide a comprehensive plan on how really you could upgrade the water system in order to do the shift. Modernization also and the technology adoption, which is really important, so to consider the implications of the digital transformation of water sector and what come to it, and how this could help us in order to enhance and improve the efficiency and reliability of the system. Financing also strategies, because you need also a continuous support and sustainable financing for such system in order to do this transformation. Regulatory compliance for this, and also the role of the regulators on this to provide the standards and regulations related to governing the water system. Awareness and education, which is really important for all society to consider this importance of intermittent water supply and dealing with it, and how we can do really gradually transition from intermittent to continuous supply. Monitoring for sure and controlling and evaluation of the system is very important in this process. Incremental also implementation. So it means that you don't also make this transformations also in one shot. You need to transition in order to make it manageable for the system to make this transformation happen. That means that you need also to deal with leakage in the network and really to reduce this high leakage in the network, because if you just shift the intermittent to continuous water supply with the same operation, that means that you would have more leakage in the network and more losses, and this would for sure would be reflected in the cost recovery of the system. In terms of also organization capacity building and strengthening the capacity of the institutions and also the staff of the utilities and all the stakeholders to do this transformation. It needs also new partnerships and also governance, because the current governance for intermittent water supply is not enough. And we need engagement in terms of operation and management, but also in terms of financing. That is why we need also private sector to be engaged in this, with also new technologies and new partnerships and new solutions also for financing, such as also new contracts, such as performance-based contracts, in order to really making this transformation happen. For this, we need new paradigm, not only to shift from intermittent to continuous, but all for the whole water sector, because we are off track to achieve water security and also the SDG 6 by 2030. That means that we change the way we manage water today, shifting from access to basic water to access to safely managed water, shifting from linear system of use and dispose to circular economy model. It's changing also the way we finance water, as we have seen in the figures that we need 4 to 6 times of capital of investment of today. That means we need really to change the way we finance water. It's changing the way also we collaborate with each other at different levels. If you are sometimes you would find also the utilities within the utility, some departments also they don't talk with each other, or at different levels when it comes to basin level, that countries they don't talk to each other, or they don't collaborate with each other in really an effective way. It's changing the way also we design our policies that really reflect all the challenges that we have seen today in many cities. For sure, this 5 I's will really guide any decision maker in order to do this transformation and achieve water security and sustainable development in terms of integration and implementing the integrated water resources management, in terms of innovation through new technologies and finance and partnership, infrastructure, and having really resilient infrastructures, information and role of digital transformation, and the institutions in order to do this shift. In terms of digital transformation and IWS, the 3 I's is really important in this transition from intermittent to continuous supply, in terms of using the eye of instrumented to ability to detect and sense and measure all this data, interconnected to achieve this interconnection between the water systems, but also with all water stakeholders, intelligent enough in order to provide the decision maker with informed decisions that comes from this data or this system when we do this digital transformation. I thank you for your attentions. At the end, also I provide you also here with there is the YouTube also channels that you would find also the recording of our webinar, and for sure if anyone also would like to present an webinar in this regard, contact also Razia on that. I stop in this side, and also thank you, and looking forward also to your questions if you have any questions or comments on this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Hassan, for very informative talk, very interesting, and thank you for doing the announcements as well. So yeah, I open the floor. Please, if you have any questions, raise your hand so we can put those to Hassan. or type it in the chat, whichever you prefer. While we are waiting for the first question from the participants, I'll ask a question, Hassan. With the climate change, we are seeing much warmer summers. For example, in UK, we are currently seeing long period of no rain. What do you see? Do you see intermittent water supply is going to increase in future, or how we are going to overcome the water security challenges in coming decades?
Yeah, thanks so much, Razia, for this question. It's really important, that we see there are two pressures that we see. One pressure that come from the global changes that we see from increasing demand due to population growth or climate extreme, as you said. But also there are another factor, which is really our management of water resources or the governance of water resources. If I see climate change as a risk multiplier on intermittent water supply. That means that cities that has really under severe conditions of droughts, they would have really a great implications on water security. And for sure, this would add an extra layer of complexity to the system, because they already have really also major challenges when it comes to the operation and the management. A major challenges you would face in terms of high levels of leakage in the network and non-revenue water. And all of this, you would find even countries with having difficulties also to ensure water security from the financing or the infrastructure itself and the resilience of the infrastructure to cope with also climate change. All of this put a great pressure on these cities, and for sure, I imagine that many cities also will, if they don't take really actions from now to consider all these aspects, that many cities will shift even from continuous to intermittent supply, or even we reach to the severe case in which we see many cities that they have reached to day zero when they don't have water at really sufficient water to supply or to meet the demand of water in the cities.
Yeah, thank you. Just in case, have you turned the speaker on for the participants? I think that
I think so, because I make mute all, mute on current mode classifier. Can anyone now allow? Maybe I ask all to unmute. Now I think everyone now can talk.
Do we have any question from our participants? Please, if you can't talk, please type in chat so we know if the microphone is not working for the participants. Hello?
Yeah, I just enabled everyone to.
Yeah, any questions from participants? If not, I would like to thank you again, Hassan, for very informative talk. And thank you to all our participants attending this webinar. So this was the final one from this series. But as Hassan mentioned, we welcome speakers. Please, if you would like to give a talk in our webinars, to contact myself or Joe Dalton, and we will try to schedule your talks in the future webinar series. Thank you again, and have a nice day. Thank you, Hassan.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much,
Thank
everyone.
You.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for a nice seminar.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.